Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Greg Kihlstrom, author of The Center of Experience. Greg, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Yeah, I would say definitely read a lot. I know that I started writing my first book, and I wish I would have done a little bit more research. I did research on the topic itself, but I wish I would have done a little more research on what other people were writing on similar topics and things like that.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Yeah, I think the hardest part in general so I've self-published all of my books, that brings its own challenges. I think finishing the book itself takes a lot of discipline and process. I think publishing, if you don't understand things like design and making specs for covers and all those things, you might have to do a bit of learning or hire a contractor to help you and all that. It's kind of the technical stuff that you write a book about a certain topic, but you have to learn a lot of technical details to really get the book ready for publish and stuff like that.
I love that. I think that will be the hook for this show, talking about self-publishing challenges. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen with doing this yourself? Because obviously, especially on your first book, you're starting from scratch. Once you've got a few books there and you continue to self-publish, it's a little easier because you get systems and processes down. But what were some of the biggest challenges you had with that first book?
Yeah, it was kind of just thinking through all the what now are basics. To your point, now I kind of have a process of even writing a book and finishing and getting it edited and all that, and realizing some of my strengths as well as some of my shortcomings. But I think the biggest thing for my first book was really getting a handle on how I was going to get the word out there and promote it. Everything from doing a mini speaking tour to getting in touch with book reviewers and all that, just really getting the fundamentals of these are all the channels of that you could get a book really promoted through. And I even have a marketing background, so some of that stuff should have been, some of that stuff did come naturally, I guess, but there were other things like getting a book reviewed. I'd never had to do that before, or doing a speaking tour. I did drove through a few states, and this was pre-COVID, of course, but just kind of planning that and being my own booking agent and all that. It took a bit of learning, and again, now I've gotten processes and spreadsheets and all that kind of in place, but it did take a bunch of thinking through.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do on, let's take social media, for instance, I believe in doing a lot of planning ahead, and it makes things really easy. So for instance, I will plan out a calendar I know when the book's going to launch, once it's sent to the publisher and we get a date finalized. So I actually plan out, I'm going to do social media posts for 3 months and plan out what those are going to say. Everyone has a call to action. I schedule everything in advance, because what ends up happening is, in addition to a day job might get in the way or things like that, but what happens is you get inundated with other opportunities. So I want to keep things moving and schedule as much as I can. Same thing with doing speaking events, and now they may be virtual for the time being, but even so, before the book is published, get a list of the places that you'd like to speak with or the people that you'd like to review the book or all of that. Get that all in a spreadsheet, have it all organized, even write form letters. So I have like stock letters that I basically modify every time I have a new book, and I just basically update the template with the title and description and maybe some other details about me that have transpired. And so I really have this suite of templates and tools that I use and update, and it just saves hours and hours of time and thinking, each time I have a new book.
I love that. I'm a huge believer in systems myself. There's no way that I could have the publishing business, run a podcast, take care of our clients, and have now a virtual summit business without systems and processes for every single thing. And the same thing with the whole publishing side, with the marketing side, with those templates, with the copying and pasting. Same thing with summits. I mean, you got to have that. And if you have that in place and you have that level of organization, it just makes things so much easier because you do it the first time and then you're just tweaking and evolving as it goes. And it just makes things so much easier for what you want to get accomplished in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it's like measure twice, cut once kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff it's not rocket science.
No.
If you get messages consistently in front of people, they will buy your book or pay attention or invite you to a webinar or all of these things. It's really just, getting all the stuff in place and then executing.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Yeah, wow. That's a great question. So it might be more a recent book that I've read that has had an impact on me. But I've been reading a lot I have a startup that recently launched called Career Gig, and so I did a lot of reading about business books for sure, but books about innovation and business and things like that. And so it's kind of a classic, but the Innovator's Dilemma is one that really resonated with me because it taught me to think through innovation in different ways. And I think what really resonated with me was this idea of large-scale innovation and small-scale innovation, and so incremental improvement and larger-scale improvement, and just being able to think through those things and understanding what I wanted to do in my own company, and even when I have an idea, is this a big or a little innovation, and in which case do I have the right people doing that and the right people thinking about it? It really, it gave me a new vocabulary for talking about things, and I think that's really what books are about. I mean, when I write my own books, I try to do that. I try to think through, okay, can I give someone a new way of explaining something that may even be familiar, they may even understand the terms or the ideas, but can I give them a new way of framing it so that they can either explain it to others or even just make better sense of it themselves?
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I don't actually know who said this, but I often say this myself, and I didn't come up with it, but it's just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And so I often find myself either having a bright idea myself, bright in quotes, or someone else, and it sounds good and it could be done, but should you really be doing it? And what's the real problem that you're trying to solve? So I find myself going back and asking myself that many times, or saying that to myself many times, and so yeah, kind of has hopefully kept me out of trouble at least a few times.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So two things. One, I definitely recommend you check out careergig.com. That's my current company. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, go to LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Send me a message. Just let me know that you heard me on this podcast, and I'd be happy to connect.
Greg, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book
at getpublishedpodcast.com.